owing to the damage caused during the restoration of the lyre and of the limited amount of organological data. Note the abundance of notes about silver consolidation compared to organological reports. An exact replication of the silver lyre was judged inappropriate. Therefore, it was agreed that a similar instrument would be built, concentrating on whatever might be learned from the meager remains available from the original. Having observed that each extant boviform lyre from the same period has differing measurements, it was assumed that each instrument, if not made by the musician himself, would have been built by different artisans whose primary formation would have been woodwork, with some metal and leather work abilities. There is no Sumerian and Akkadian textual evidence that there were specialized instrument makers at Sumer, or later at Akkad, Babylon, or Ashur. On the other hand, we have evidence from Mari that materials for the building of musical instruments were ordered by artisans specialized in wood, leather, and metalwork, and that it is possible to assume that instrument making was part of their training, or that they adapted their trade to their making. During the reign of Zimrilim, in the early 2nd millennium BCE, we have the following attestations in a series of cuneiform texts. 2 Shinuntum hides, received by Hamatan for making a throne of Shamash, a dish and things for musicians. 1 Shinuntum hide, received by Habdumalik for making a table and a large boviform lyre. 1 Shinuntum hide, received by Hubarabi for making a shebetum instrument, a tilmutum instrument, and a portable lyre. 1/2 Shinuntum hide, received by Didi for making 2 portable lyres, 2 Shinuntum hides for making a throne of Shamash, a table of Maluha and for making the material for the musicians, received by Hamatan, 1 Shinuntum hide for making a dish and a large boviform lyre, received by Habdumalik. These texts further mention 2 hides for the balagum instruments, for the purification ceremony, alum salts for the tanning of hides for the alum drum, 120 bronze nails to stretch the hides for 2 alu drums, shimtum glue received by Mukiadu for 2 kinnarum portable lyres, 1 measure of vegetal oil for 5 alum drum hides, 9 Shinuntum hides for 10 artisans, thus 5.5 hides for making musical instruments. There is also mentioned that 1 Gishlium, 1 Orzababitum instrument, 1 Algos Shorum instrument, 1 Samum harp, and 1 Kinnarum portable lyre are gold-plated. So, at Mari, we know that there were some artisans specialized in the making of specific instruments. For instance, Habdumalik made Parashatum large boviform lyres. Hammurabi made Shebitum, Tilmotum, and Kinnarum instruments. Didi and Milkiadu made Kinnarum portable lyres. We know that hides were used for most percussion and string instrument types, probably for their soundboards as a drum head is a soundboard. We know that alum salts were used for their preservation, and that vegetal oil was used for their purification at the temple. We are informed of the usage of bronze nails, probably for the stretching of hides onto the frames of instruments, and that some of them were gold-plated or made of gold plates. Such was the case with silver plates with the silver lyre. Thus, textual evidence excludes the usage of wood used for the making of soundboards. Of course, this evidence is restricted to a short period during the early 2nd millennium at Mari and does not constitute evidence that either the same techniques, names and functions for these instruments were the same used earlier, at the time, or later outside Mari, but that it constitutes a serious basis for reasonable assumptions to be made in that respect. Would the parashitum used at Mari, which probably came from Iran as its name might suggest, be the equivalent of the large Sumerian boviform lyre, the silver lyre for which we have no lexical identification in Sumerian or Akkadian to this day? Thus, the usage of metal plates for the making of instrumental soundboards was not an isolated usage specific to Sumer, where we have, in addition to the silver lyre, other instruments which were also fitted with silver plate soundboards. It is the speed at which the sound travels in a material which determines its appropriateness as a soundboard, and the faster the better. For example, a general tabulated value for the bulk modulus of steel gives a sound speed for structural steel of 4,512 meters per second and approximately 4,000 meters second for silver. Therefore, silver is perfectly suitable for its purpose as a soundboard, as the denser the medium, the faster the speed of travel of sound within. Therefore, the fitting of instruments with metallic soundboards is a reasonable proposition generally, and silver particularly, under the condition that at that period the production of sheet silver was a known technique. Woolley's measurements give a height of 106 centimeters by 97 centimeters in length and 6.5 centimeters at its widest, with which, after careful observation, is correct. However, after examination of the evidence and digital reconstruction, the original instrument and its restoration diverge quite significantly, as will be shown later. It will be noted that the tenons of both uprights slid into the sound box down to the bottom of the box, and thus were kept in the right position. It is therefore very possible that the uprights were removable for purposes of maintenance, but also probably for transport when musicians were displaced from one city-state to the other. The yoke would also have been removable and kept in place by tenon mortise joints. During the reconstruction of the lyre, only tools contemporary with the instrument were used, as their usage was crucial for understanding how things were made. Thankfully, many tools had been excavated from the tombs of Ur, and replicas were made from these models. There were a variety of saws, each designed for a particular work, which reveals that woodworking would have reached a very high standard. Saws made of gold would obviously have had a symbolic function, as the metal is inappropriate for woodwork. Bronze saws would have been adequate. The making of the frame was a straightforward operation which did not require more tools than those known from the archaeology. The glues used were satisfactory and appeared to be as good as any modern ones, and demanded little time for their preparation. However, the smell of boiling animal hides, hooves, and bones was almost emetic. Most of the time was spent on scraping the wood with metal implements to make surfaces smooth and ready for the applying of metal sheets. The bitumen used was slowly melted down until it reached the consistency of custard, and then brushed liberally onto the wood. The metal sheets were applied immediately before the bitumen cooled down and hardened. Small nails secured the sheets in place, and in case an adjustment was to be made, a flame was brought to the place where the bitumen needed to be softened below the metal. The soundboard required a large sheet of metal, which was shaped with a slight belly to withstand the pressure of the strings transmitted by the bridge. The metal was gently beaten cold on a slightly convex wooden surface. It was then placed in position within the frame of the soundbox. The sheet was cut to size, hot bitumen brushed onto the soundbox recess, pressed and nailed down all around for perfect fit. A wooden rod was inserted and glued below the soundbox for attachment of the strings. It is yet unsafe to say what was the type of bridge used. Some have hypothesized that it would be similar to that of the Ethiopian bagana, although there is no reason why this should be, on the basis of the flimsy evidence of the only extant bridge found at Kinroth. We opted for a traditional bridge made of one solid piece of sycamore, carefully fitted to the surface of the soundboard to avoid any buzzing during playing. The tuning levers, or tuning pegs, were also made from sycamore because of its qualities. The sawing was a lengthy process which demanded frequent sharpening of our bronze tools. The close examination of the original tuning pegs revealed that they were all drilled through at the same places and spaced equally. This led us to the hypothesis that this lyre was not equipped with the usual tuning levers which tensed or relaxed the strings by rotation around the yoke, but that differently. They were tightly fixed vertically against the yoke with gut strings. Each string was then driven through the lower hole, with its end tied in a knot. The upper hole was used for tuning with a metal rod, especially designed to rotate the peg on its axis. This method would certainly be an intermediate transitional phase between the tuning lever and the tuning peg methods. The position of the bass string was atypical, as it was placed outside the trapezoidal frame of the lyre. From this, we speculated that originally this silver lyre would have been fitted with 9 strings, and that in the course of time 2 strings were added, one at the treble and one at the bass. The strings were made of sheep's guts. The term used for them was Sumerian sa, Akkadian pitnu. They were washed, then preserved with alum, a technique which was well known from Mari and other archives. They were washed again and twisted with a spindle, probably the same that was used for spinning wool or other fibers and then let to dry under the sun. For bass strings, more than one length of gut would have been spun together. Stronger strings, such as used for attachment onto the penis of the animal, would have needed as many as 8 lengths spun together. There is ample evidence from the Mari archives that the making of strings was a speciality, as letters dating from the 2nd millennium requested that some should be ordered as soon as possible from another city. Obviously, there were places where their manufacture was better than others. We have experimented with gut string making for over 30 years, mainly with sheep and pig, but also with various birds such as chicken, geese, and duck. It is contended that the guts used for lyres were those from the totemized animal. A bull lyre would have been strung with bull guts, a fallow deer lyre would have been strung with fallow deer guts, and so on. Mainly, soundboards too would have been made from the raw hide of the animal it represented. The silver calf's head was executed by John Dean, a renowned artist from London exhibiting internationally and teaching at the Heatherley School of Arts in Chelsea, London. Thank you very much for your kind attention.